that we're having. And that's because Symphonia has requested that we do so. So we have access to it. Even those who couldn't attend are able to share the content with us. So let's go for it. So the first one, guys, I just want to know, even if it's just 5 people at the most, I just want to know, when you saw this topic, beyond the pandemic, what came to mind? Anyone can respond as the first one, because I'm not seeing any hand. When you saw the topic beyond the pandemic, what came to mind? Bianca?
If I can jump in here, Ziyanda, I think the first thing that came to mind for me is, how will the new normal look? Because the place of work will definitely no longer be the same. And how will it impact the people? You know, there's legislation and operations on the one hand, but then there's the neurological, emotional, employee well-being type of side on the other side. So, so both practical as well as strategic. You know, how does it look? How does our new normal look when we return to work?
Okay, thank you. Someone else?
Ziyanda, it's Bianca. When I saw the topic, I thought to myself, given the fact that it's under women in leadership, you know, how do we lead ourselves, and just identifying some of the things that we are going through, and just become a bit more resilient. And I was keen to just hear from others as to what are some of the techniques and some of the things that you guys are doing, just to get through and to move forward.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Bianca. Another one?
Hi, Ziyanda.
Hello. Hi, Nompelo.
It's Nompelo here. For me, I was thinking, how do I reinvent myself to fit into this new world? Because how I work, I'm an independent consultant. And when you're a contractor, you're the first person to go when business is bad. So I knew, okay, I'm not going to be able to operate the way I'm operating now. How do I reinvent myself so that I continue to work in this new world?
Thank you.
Hi, Z, it's Tutu.
Hi, Tutu.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
When I saw the topic, I think more than anything that came to my mind was, am I ready for the change? How can I learn from others to be prepared for the change that is coming? That is here, not is coming, that is here already.
Thank you. The last person?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tutu.
Matsela from Port Elizabeth, Umsinsi Healthcare. Yeah, I think we have to adjust ourselves to a new way of working. I think everybody is apprehensive. Everybody is not sure of what this new world and the new way of doing things is going to look like. So I think the easiest way to help yourself is to get as much input from people as possible as to, you know, ways of working in this type of environment. You yourself said you are having to get used to working with Zoom. All of us are, because we can't see our clients. I mean, I'm in the medical industry and I'm used to sitting across the table with people, and now I have to Zoom call people, email, phone, etc., which was being done, but not in as much of a fashion as it's being done now. So we need guidance from as many people as possible as to how to, as the one previous speaker said, reinvent ourselves in this situation.
Thank you, Tebogo. There was a last hand that I'm going to give. I think it was Chanel. Very last, the 6th person.
Hi everyone, this is Chanel. So when I saw this topic, the thing that popped up first was there's a transformation that is required within every business, within everyone, And as a leader, trying to envision what is that supposed to look like with all this uncertainty is the first challenge. The second challenge is taking people along the journey of that transformation. And what are the techniques? What are the processes? What are other people doing? Considering the amount of uncertainty and worries. I'm in the aviation industry and flights aren't flying at the moment. So there's also a lot of fear from employees, a lot of uncertainty on when things go back, what would that look like in our area of work? And as a leader, having to take people along the journey of transformation, also not knowing where the end is sort of the biggest challenge.
Got you. I think thank you, colleagues. I think that leads us to the second slide, where I said, what does it mean to be human? And this is a question that has really bothered me personally since we started the lockdown, or rather since the pandemic started to affect South Africa. And as I sit here, there's a number of answers I have, and I was wondering whether, as a collective, we actually are pondering about this question that says, what does it mean to be human? And you would notice in the first slide, we're saying we're downloading the old patterns. So I'm using the theory U process of transformation for us to have the conversation. And by saying we need to download the old patterns, the invitation I have to all of us, including myself, is to start reflecting on what was your thinking pattern before the pandemic? How were you processing your world? Through which lenses did you process your own world? Context could be work, context could be home. Another new context now is homeschooling. So how were you thinking about these things? And which of those thinking patterns are no longer relevant currently and going forward? And so I think the question around what does it mean then to be human came up because I was asking myself those questions. And one of the questions was, now that there's a lockdown, what does it mean for me? So I understand that there's a concern about others, about organizations, rightfully so, about the economy, about how the teams are going to adapt, about how we're going to reinvent ourselves and lead in the new world. But I suppose for me, the lockdown has brought a sense of awareness that I'm being locked down to self. I am being brought back to self. And the question I have is, what have you discovered about yourself during the lockdown? That's the first question. And that's because before we can even serve others, we have to completely understand ourselves first, or have a good grasp of who we are first. And so for me, when we're locked down and we're taught or told or regulated to go inside our homes, I took that to mean I have to go back inside me and kind of to understand what patterns did I have, thinking, emotional, behavioral patterns did I have or do I have that need to shift. And we're to a bigger extent busy with being busy, some of us. Now that the material things, the car is in the garage, the clothes are in the cabinet, the cash is in the ATMs and in the banks, we can't even access much of it anymore. Now that these external things that we're using to distract ourselves sometimes are no longer there, what is happening with this? Who is she? Because even for me to reinvent self, I have to understand who I am first. So the question on this slide that I have that I would like people to just respond to, I'll give it just 10 minutes, is to say, now that you've been locked down, you've been brought back to self, what have you discovered about yourself? That's question number one. Question number two is, which pattern did you have before the pandemic that is no longer going to be relevant for you during and after the pandemic? I hope I'm making sense. Did you guys get the question?
Hello, Ziyanda, Noma Pelo here again.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I discovered during the lockdown, because I was asking myself, what unique value now am I bringing back to the market? Because that's what's going to differentiate me. Because I realized I'm gonna have to reinvent myself. Showing up as what I was is not going to work in this new world. So I was thinking to myself, what is my unique value? And what came up for me was that my story is my unique value. So telling my story, is what differentiates me from others, because my stories are unique to others. So that's what came up for me, telling my story. That's my value.
Okay, got you. Thank you, Ramapelo. What has lockdown taught you about being human now that the distractions are no longer there? What are your reflections?
I see.
To change. Okay.
Ziyanda, can I just share what it's Bianca? I think initially, when I'm an HR consultant and a trainer, so work started getting cancelled from before lockdown. And I started thinking about people whose contracts had been terminated, people that had been put on short time. And I think I went into lockdown concerned about others, like how are people going to eat? Are people okay in my family? I need to conserve my income, not for my own family, but to be able to help others. I couldn't believe that that there's just such humanity around in our community, where people have little but they are giving towards food parcels for families just so that others can eat. So that really warmed my heart, because in the rest of the world I was seeing bulk buying and hoarding, but in my world I was just seeing, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? Here's some money for some food parcels, because my husband does distribution of food parcels, and just little bits, 50 Rand, 120 Rand. And I was just very blessed by the South African spirit. We're very special, and that blessed me.
Thank you. Wow, thank you so much. Humanity. Come, guys. Hello.
I put my answer on the chat, but
Okay.
I think what came out strongly for me, which was removed by lockdown, is the actual contact with people, relationships.
Okay, maybe he's not back yet. Guys, can you just give me a sign that you hear me so I can continue?
Hi, Z, I can hear you.
Great stuff.
See, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I can.
Great stuff. All right. So the reason why I personally have asked myself this question is because I suppose, just like everybody else, in March I was under shock, and I realized the shock wasn't going to help me anymore, because as we all know, when you are under stress, your creativity, innovative brain takes a rest sometimes, and you can't think straight, and therefore you can't co-create new solutions to the new problems we are encountering. And it is in the beginning of April that I started to say, okay, fine, how do I get myself in terms of thinking outside of out of the fear state of thinking and victim state of thinking? And that's where the first question was, what does it mean to be human? Started to be very important for me. And for me personally, what the lockdown has done is to, when I say it has put me back to myself, it is teaching me how to self-love. And because I was busy with being busy and busy with material things, I assumed actually I loved Ziyanda, but I don't necessarily think I really did. Only now am I doing that work of saying, I see you, I love you type of a process. And that for me is very important, because it is starting to form a new way of thinking about myself first, showing myself compassion so that I can continue to apply that in how I lead during and beyond the pandemic. So I think this question is a question that we're probably going to ponder on some more and reflect some more, because we really need to download before patterns and the patterns of thinking that we need during the pandemic and after it. And that will impact directly how we lead, not only in our organizations, but also in our communities and in our homes. And I like the answer that said, there's a sense of humanity, of connectedness, of helping one another. And I kept on thinking, since we are now in that state of thinking and being, is it ever possible, but perhaps for us, to actually apply the same way of thinking and feeling when we go back to our organizations? And that's actually the question I have to say, just for us to keep in mind that if the pandemic is teaching us that, first and foremost, we're humans. And we are humans who are leaders, but first and foremost, we're humans, and therefore connectivity is very important when we go back to work. And I think we need to debunk this question even further in our own unique and personal lives and have our own unique answers, as Nomapelo says, because everyone's story is going to be unique. How you go through the process is very unique, and you have got to allow yourself to go through the process. So that's the first thing I had done for myself. I said, what were my before patterns? What am I going through now? What do I want going forward? And that helped me to reframe my thinking patterns to align with how I want to show up during this process and after. So I hope that gives you an idea of the first things we need to do is to be aware that we are not okay. And then to consciously decide what you need to do to start being okay. First you, and then you help others, right? So the second part then, that leads me to the second slide, where I said, now that we know we're in shock, okay, there's old patterns, they no longer apply during the pandemic, they need to shift. The lenses through which I see my context needs to shift. What does that mean in my unique space? Because now, according to the theory, you would start to see things with fresh eyes. But for you to even get to that point, you have got to understand where are you stuck first. So you can see in the screen in front of you, there's a forest. And I say, where we were nowhere, it was at a point of, for me personally, it was at a point of first 2 weeks lockdown. I was like, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. My mind is playing games with me. It makes me think I'm sick. That was because I was very fearful and not accepting of the lockdown at the time. So at that particular point in time, I was nowhere. And then I'm a small business owner. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't know, I'm lost. I don't know, where am I going to start? Where am I going to start earning money? To the other colleague's point, I'm also a trainer as well. So a lot of projects were starting to be postponed, cancelled. And therefore I consciously realized I am in the forest. I am nowhere. The other way you can reflect on this is to say, when there were cars and clothes and business with being busy, was that a forest? Was I nowhere? If I was, now where I am, where am I now? So in the forest, you first say, sensing with new eyes, I'm nowhere. I don't know whether I'm coming or going. I need to change the way I think so I can affect the way I feel, so I can show up differently. So that's the first step in the forest. The second one, in seeing with fresh eyes, is to recognize that you are nowhere. Now, firstly, I'm nowhere. I don't know where I'm going. Unconsciously incompetent, as we put it. I'm unconscious that I'm incompetent. I don't know where I am. Nowhere is, now I'm conscious that I'm in the forest. I'm here. I'm in the forest. But I still don't know where I'm going. Which is why we're having these conversations we're having today to say, can we help each other through the forest so that we can start knowing where we are now we are here. So we can start knowing where we are in the forest. And the question that I have on this slide to raise consciousness and awareness is to say, if you are finding yourself still nowhere, don't know where you are, what crossroads are you finding yourself? What is causing the crossroad? What is causing the block? And the second part is, where is your past ending and your future beginning? So we've reflected on this on the slide one to say, what must I let go of? Because guess what? In the forest, you have got to get to a point of knowing, I'm nowhere. I'm possibly somewhere here, but still nowhere. I don't see the way forward. Then collectively, we would be able to assist each other using the very framework that I'm going to take you guys through to think differently, so that our reality is different going forward. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Does it make sense? The first one is I'm unconsciously incompetent. So I don't know where I am. The second phase would be, oh, no, where? Okay, we're here. Okay. I'm still in the forest. I'm not seeing the direction out of the forest. And there, that's a question you need to ask yourself, what is a crossroad? What is causing me this darkness? Where am I finding myself? What is causing me the nowhere vibe? Because I need to be now here. I need to know where I am going. But for me to do that, I have to immerse myself in even the current state I'm in and understand and be aware and consciously aware of where am I finding myself in the forest? Nowhere, nowhere, now here.
Ziyanda? Ziyanda, it's Julie. May I make a comment at this point?
Yes.
I'm a story practitioner, and as many of you, working with people, of course, I'm a freelancer, and my work is connecting very much emotionally, sitting across from someone, eye contact, body language, all the things that we work with, and of course, that's all being taken away. So what is very comforting for me this morning is hearing that they're very similar emotions and responses from a lot of you that I've been feeling in myself. So that in itself is just so helpful for me. So I must thank you for that.
Pleasure.
And then hearing the different phases from like shock, the amygdala kicking in, no creative thinking. And I think the crossroads where I find myself is in week 5, I've come to the place, and it began in week 4, where I was so hell-bent. The world tells me I should be doing, coming up with some fantastic new ideas, coming up with some amazing way to reinvent myself, and the world telling me that I've just got to do. And of course, I just felt like I was in an absolute fog, and there was zero creativity, zero brain activity, like nothing was forthcoming. And the more I was chasing it, the less it was coming to me. And so, I mean, it did take a long time, but by week 4, I realized that I was desperate for silence, because all the traffic that has come off the roads has gone onto the internet. So the internet is screaming with people trying to make themselves seen, and all these courses and webinars and all these things. And the more I was seeing that, the more inadequate I was feeling. And I thought, this is absolutely crazy. I'm going to do the very opposite of what I feel driven to do, and that is to step back from everything and actually take silence. And it's like trying to see your reflection in a rushing river. You can't see your reflection in a rushing river. You have to wait for the waters to calm. And so it is in these calm waters that I can begin to see some kind of reflection. And I know it's counterintuitive to many, to myself, but I am taking silence, and I am waiting. I'm waiting, and I'm waiting in silence. And for the first time, there's some kind of shifting and some kind of movement happening. So for me, that's very much the crossroads of how do I begin with myself before I can even take it out there to the sectors I work in or the people I work in. And for me, the word is stillness and waiting. And then to have a conversation or a webinar like this is just such balm for my soul, particularly this morning. So thank you.
Pleasure.
It's in the silence for me.
So you're now here is I'm being still.
Yeah.
I'm now here.
Still.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other sharing? Ina, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
It's perfect, thank you. Yes, I think Jilly's touched on some things that I've had some thoughts on. I've always seen myself as an introvert, and it's wonderful to have the confirmation that I indeed am, because I had to go into self-isolation from the 16th of March already because of other reasons. So I've been in lockdown for a long time, and at the beginning it was actually the first month and a half, it was absolute heaven to be at home and to just do my work and have contact with my students. I'm an academic. Via appointments and online and via telephone, and the interaction with them, and not being in the noise. What's been happening with us as well is expectance of enormous innovation to get through this situation in higher education. We're all sitting and waiting again for the minister's remarks later today to see what's happening. And that's my point at the moment. The first 4 or 5 weeks, I knew exactly what to do. I had work to do to get through with my students. And now I seem to be at the time where I get to be dependent on other people's decisions, other committees, the government, whoever. Before I can decide my way forward. I'm starting to feel as if things are being taken out of my hands, and I have to now wait, as you said. And as Julie also said, I'm now at a point where I'm leaving it now. I'm not going to think about this, trying to find ways and means and strategies. I'm now going to sit back and wait until decisions were made and clarity has been given, because I'm now getting to that point of feeling that whatever we try, whatever I thought of, is going by the wayside, and it's not a good influence on me, and definitely not on whatever plans I want to make with my students. So, although personally it's been a great experience for me up to now, there is some restlessness that I don't quite know what to do with. So apart from the fact that I wonder if I'm not normal for feeling so fairly fine in isolation, there is some restlessness, and I don't quite know what to be aware of when it becomes actually a problem. Thank you.
I see. And so for you, Ina, you would probably be in which nowhere here? In the middle? I'm nowhere. I'm in the forest.
Yeah, I think I was not there. I was quite sure of where I was, the first few weeks. I'm now getting to that point where I'm asking myself, where exactly am I? And where am I supposed to go, I suppose.
That's interesting. No way. Where am I supposed to go? Okay, another last point. Who's raising a hand? I'm not seeing anything on the system here. Is it Raja? Can go ahead. Let me unmute you. Hold on. Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this. So at the beginning of lockdown, I found myself in acceptance. And the reason for that was I've been doing a lot of the inner work on myself for the past 2 years or so. And while I was doing the work, I had no understanding of why things were happening to me and why I had to go within. And towards the end of last year, I had a massive breakdown, a nervous breakdown, and I couldn't understand that as well. because I am an entrepreneur. I run a soft skills training company, and I also do coaching. And it's as if the universe had forced me to become quiet. So when the lockdown came, I went into acceptance. I was accepting that this is the way it is. And I went into deeper stillness. That was my nowhere. My nowhere, after a while, after 2 or 3 weeks, I just started being. I just started looking at the sky differently. You know, the clouds were whiter, the sky was bluer, the birds were louder, the grass was greener, my family were more peaceful. And the now year for me is to show up with trusting my heart, because I've done a lot of work on stepping out of the logic mind into the heart. I'm quite excited about the new world. I feel as if I personally have done the work, and I must just add that doing the work was very, very painful.
Wow. Wow. So you're trusting and excited for the new world. That's your now here. Because you've allowed yourself to go to nowhere and nowhere and now here. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And so thank you very much for sharing, Raja. And these are some of the tools that we use, guys, to start to sense your own context with fresh eyes. Hence, I said at the beginning, for me personally, I regarded the lockdown as a lock me in going back to myself, because I realized there were parts of me that needed help even before the pandemic. The stillness, the lockdown, the being brought back home gave me that time to reflect on, where am I? Initially, I knew I was in the forest, I'm nowhere. And then I got to a point of saying, okay, I'm nowhere, which means I know where I am in the forest, but I still don't know which direction to take. That's where I realized I too needed to do some inner work. And for me, the first thing that came strongly for me was self-love. That was where I needed to start. And I'm thankful for the sharing, because I now realize that I'm still in the journey of self-love, but at the same time, also excited about the new world. But I love the sharing that says also, it's okay to be in stillness. Because I suppose when you are in stillness, that's where also the innovation will start kicking in, when you calm down, when you are out of the scared and panic mode. And in order for us to come out of the panic mode, we're going to have to make conscious decisions about even the content we consume or expose ourselves to. In terms of television, I have had to make that decision for myself to say, what do I look for in the news? Do I really need the news to assess what's going on? Can I just go to an online solution and just check what the states are telling me and leave it at that? What is the languaging of the media personnel around this thing? How does it affect my thinking and my feeling? Am I okay with that? So the more you know, you are nowhere, and you need to be now here. You need to always constantly check, what is my crossroad? What must I leave behind? What must I take on? Because all of that journey, as excruciating as it is starting to create in you the invented being, the new invention in you. So I hope that this slide is going to help you as you reflect deeper, to help yourself in helping yourself to come out of the forest. So the next one for me is, in order for us to be able to sense with those fresh eyes, one of the biggest enemies we have amongst many is judgment. So we have a tendency of self-judging a lot, and by extension judging others. So I think in the journey of I am nowhere, and I'm on a journey of wanting to be now here, I need to suspend judgment. Especially judgment based on previous experience, because whatever we used to do before the pandemic, some of the things that we used to do, used to think, used to show up as are null and void, they're no longer going to come through now beyond this point. So therefore, judging situations using past experience might not always work. So we therefore need to open up our minds, because in order for us to have the creativity we need an open mindset, which is a growth mindset. But often we find that in terms of coaching, we find that people, because of judging self and judging others, there's fixed mindedness in terms of how to solve for the now and going forward. So I would like to invite you, the first thing you would need to do in order for you to see with clearer eyes, with more consciousness and awareness, is to suspend judgment. The second part is, as we have reflected on, teams are discussing new solutions. Let me just check if there's no one who has a question on the chats. Okay, so as we go through the journey of, okay, I'm in the forest, I don't know whether I'm going this way or that way, I know I'm nowhere, and I know this is my crossroad. Let me work on myself so I can come out of the crossroad, and so on. So that journey is gonna take long. It's gonna be unique for each individual. First thing you need to do is to let go of judgment, so that's a suspend judgment. The second part is to hold the space for listening to yourself first. Often, if we struggle to listen to ourselves, we will struggle to listen and hear others. So in order for us to create a safe space during the pandemic and even beyond, we gotta stop. The ladies have spoken about it. Stop and be still. Stop and have clear intentions, right? And for you to do that, you need to do deep, active listening to first yourself, hear yourself. Secondary to that, you need to listen to others, like we are doing here today. Because it is only when we do that, actively listening to self, actively listening to others, that we become more aware of what is emerging in that collective. Because right now, we are about, or we need to solve for problems we have not even encountered yet. And for us to do that, we need to stop stillness, have clear intentions, so that we can show up authentically. For that to happen, we need to practice deep, active listening. Firstly, to yourself. That is why it's important for you to stop in that forest and say, where am I? What is the crossroad here? Listen to yourself. Second to that, listen to others, so that you can pick up what is emerging in the collective that you've convened. It could be the Department of Education. You need to discuss how to solve the issues that we're encountering, but you always have to start deep listening first. That will create a safe environment. However, this holding the space for listening will not take place if there's too much judgment in the context. I hope I'm making sense. Any questions? Are we still together, or other people have dropped? Let me just see. Any questions?
We're still here.
Okay. Still here, making lots of sense.
Still here.
So the previous one, remember we said we downloaded the patterns of how we used to think before the pandemic, because some of those patterns are not applicable during and after. And then we discovered, oh, we are in the forest. Some of us are nowhere. Some of us are nowhere. So we know we're here, but we still don't know where to go. Some of us are now here. They're excited about the pandemic, what the benefits there are, and the new world. But the first thing we need to do, in order for us to know how to hold a space for listening for others, we have got to suspend judgment, especially judgment due to previous experiences, and keep an open mind. Secondly, when you're holding the space, you first hold the space for yourself. It means you need to do deep, active listening to you first. When you are able to do that, you therefore will be able to listen to the other. That way, everyone else will show up authentically and with clear intention, because an environment where people are deeply listened to becomes a safe environment that can contain authenticity and realness. Okay? And I think it's gonna cut us now. Guys, is there anyone on your side that has been notified that the system is gonna cut you? Or can we still go ahead? Do you hear me?
Happy to go ahead.
Hear you.
Great stuff. So
Go ahead.
Between the suspension of judgment and holding the space for listening. What are we struggling with? What are we personally struggling with when it comes to judgment and holding the space for listening during this time? What are we struggling with?
Ziyanda? Ziyanda?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Can you please repeat that? Please repeat that. You broke up.
Okay.
Please repeat that question.
All right. So I said the question is, in order for us to be able to continue to sense our forest, which is our context, with the fresh eyes, we have got to let go of judgment, meaning prejudging or judging things due to past experience. Because now we recognize that some of the experience we have was before the pandemic. Some of those experiences are no longer applicable during and after. So therefore, it is fruitless to judge situations. One of the reasons also why we need to drop judgment or suspend judgment is so that we can practice to hold a space for listening, not only for others, but first for ourselves. So the question was, when it comes to suspension of judgment and holding the space for listening, what are we struggling with? Or what are we going to struggle with, do we think?
Just repeat the last part of your question again.
Oh, sorry, I was breaking again still. Okay. Can you guys hear me? I think I'm breaking. So let me try again. So the question is, when it comes to letting go of judgment and creating a safe, contained environment using holding the space for listening, during and after this pandemic, what do we think we're going to struggle with when it comes to letting go of judgment and active listening or holding the space for listening?
Ziyanda, I'd like to answer that just from my own experience, is again the emotional side. You know, we may know what's the right thing to do and to listen, but when we're in that state of fight or fear, our brains go offline, and so we are struggling with our own emotions, and that's making it difficult to hold space for other people, I'm finding.
Okay, thank you for that. I like that.
Hi, Ziyanda. For me,
okay. You can go ahead, Mapela, sorry.
Hi, Ziyanda. So for me, it was, it's about routine, because during this lockdown, what has sort of gave me some sanity is keeping a routine. I wake up, even if I wake up at 7, I try to do 30 minutes exercise, breakfast. Like I literally have a list I'm reading, like I have a routine. Even I have time even to look for social media, emails. So that's what, and then also even meditation, I have a routine. Going back to work usually, and I've done this for usually the routine goes out the window. So I think going back to work, I'll have to try to keep some of the good habits that I've picked up during this lockdown, like having that quiet time in the morning, including exercising. So just, yeah, keeping routine, because if I don't keep the routine, it will take away that holding space for listening.
Got you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Nomapelo. And I suppose it would then assist with the brain going offline type of a comment. So it will calm you down from fighting or fearing, right? Or does it, that routine?
Yes, yeah, the routine, yeah, it keeps away, yeah, the fear, and I get things done instead of, because procrastination, that's how my fear manifests itself a lot, through procrastination. So when I have a routine and I can tick things off and I feel good, okay, I've done this, tick down, so it keeps fear at bay, yeah.
Got you. Thank you, Nomapelo. Any other sharing, guys, of how we can actually assist ourselves when we're trying to hold a space, not only for ourselves, but for others? What else can we do?
I think one of the things we need to do is to let go of perceptions, preconceived ideas, be prepared to get out of your comfort zone, because that's one of the things that holds us back, is that if we're used to a certain thing, we don't want to open ourselves to anything new or anything different. That's why we don't give people that space to speak to us. We don't listen because we are so used to what we know, what we want, what we see, what is our environment. We don't want to let something in that's going to change what we're comfortable with. And that's why we need to get away. You can't expect to progress if you're rigid. That's one of the things that I have learned. If you want to progress, you need to be open to fresh ideas. You can't be rigid. You must be open to change.
Thank you so much.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, ma'am. Is that Michelle?
Thank you so much for, yes, it is. Thank you so much for bringing this conversation to this particular forum. I think certainly for me, you as a coach are raising the awareness and the importance of our role as individuals as we go through this time of disruption. That really, you know, even what Nomapelo was saying around routine is the one thing that we really have to be so conscious of, is that the success of an intervention is going to depend on the interior condition of the intervener. And that beautiful quote from Theory U is just such a reminder to all of us that we have to make sure that we look after ourselves, that we deal with our own core wounds, that we're sitting in coaching circles and coaching conversations with individuals like yourself, because it's so easy for us to say, I'm not going to judge, I'm not going to do that, but we're judging all the time and we're making choices all the time. And I think these types of conversations are so important as containers for us to nurture and take care of our mental health and our quality of thinking, because as we go through this pandemic and even post the pandemic, what we're going to build is only going to be as sustainable as the quality of our thinking and the work we've done to master ourselves in environments like these. So thank you. Shop, my sister. Love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mish. Thank you, Mish. I love that. So the quality of the
Ziyanda?
Yes, Julie. How do you pronounce your name?
It's Julie.
Julie.
With a
you can
soft
go
G,
ahead.
Julie.
Oh, okay.
Ziyanda, I'm listening. Thank you. Just listening to the input with regard to routine and to deep listening, and then Teboho raised something so interesting about, you know, our comfort zones and shifting those and needing to step into new things. And so I just wanted to add to this to say that it's because this is such uncharted territory, for me it's about the courage to ask the questions. So my struggle right now is I'm so out of my comfort zone with regard to technology, even social media to a large degree. So the question I have to ask myself is, what's keeping me from stepping out of my comfort zone? What's keeping me from showing up? So it's asking the questions and then sitting with the questions, actually holding space with the questions. So that is what I'm trying to do too, in terms of being helpful. So not necessarily coming to a massive realization straight away, but being able to ask those questions and then allow them to percolate and to see what comes up. And sometimes it'll be a quick realization, or it might take a week, or it might take a conversation or a forum like this to bring something to the fore. But I think asking the questions and then resting with the questions is very helpful as well, to be able to move from that place of to move into that place of discomfort. And yeah, so it's being able to ask
Absolutely.
questions.
Thank you so much, Shirley, because you are so right. And that's one thing that I also am going through during this lockdown, to even ask the question and sit with the emotion. Even if the emotion is not a nice emotion for me to sit with, I have got to sit with it until I understand what is it trying to teach me, so that I can learn the lesson, you know? And also to Teboko's point about certain uncertainty and comfort zone and all of that stuff. You know what, I've been hearing this from even my clients. Things are uncertain, I'm frustrated. Things are uncertain, I'm frustrated, you know? And I've been asking my clients, has the world ever been certain? Or did we lie to ourselves thinking things were certain? Because in my view, things were never certain. We never knew whether or not we were gonna wake up tomorrow anyways. We never knew whether or not we would have jobs when we wake up tomorrow anyways. So where does the certainty lie comes from? Because it also adds into the fear that we go through, that things were certain. I suppose we have to rethink the comfort zone and certainty and all of those things, because things actually have always been uncertain, I suppose. So thank you for that sharing. Any other views? How are we going to create a space for listening, not only to ourselves, but to others? But most importantly, what is standing in our way of doing that, of creating the safe environment?
Ziyanda, just in the interest of collaboration, I found that just generosity, and I think Symphonia has really led in this area, just offering these free webinars and letting us all get to see how the Zoom thing works, and, you know, you guys not being afraid to even be crappy at first, you know, just learning from each other as to how to use this thing and what works and what doesn't. But so I decided to just connect with all my clients the minute that I came out of brain fog, and just be generous with them as well, and just hold space for them. How are you guys doing? And that gave me insight into what they potentially need going forward from me. So I think that, and then the thoughts started coming in terms of the opportunity. I mean, if everybody's in the same position and we just...
Hello, everybody. We're back. We're back.
Hi, Ziyanda.
Hello. Welcome back.
Ziyanda.
You can go
Hi,
ahead.
Ziyanda. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You can go ahead.
Ziyanda, I think a lot of people, they've started using the part 2 link, because when we went off just now, the other link came up to click on.
We are on the 11 o'clock with link now. Are you saying that?
For me, it was actually quite different. I used the second link the second time.
That's interesting. Because I've clicked on the 11 o'clock one, which is the second one, the part 2 one.
Well, I guess.
Let me just write to them again. Hi, everyone. Thank you for...
Sorry, Ziyanda, I couldn't hear any of that.
So I was just saying that I actually clicked on the second link, which is a part 2 one for 11 o'clock. Were you saying others are still on the 10 a.m. one?
No, it's the other way around. Because I clicked initially on the second link and there were a whole lot of people and you weren't on. So I exited that meeting and I've gone and clicked on the first link.
Hi, guys. Technology. Which link is this one? Second link. Okay, cool. So we are all in the right place. All right, cool. So let me share again, guys. Let me just share quickly the screen. There was someone who was sharing a feedback for us before we got cut off. I just didn't get the name. Can you guys hear me?
First was on the other link. I went on to ask her to please move to the second link. She's doing that now. Oh, there we go.
I'm here.
Hi, Ziyanda.
Hi, guys. Technology. You gotta laugh it away, I tell you.
I never left.
Is it? All right. Can you guys?
I never left, actually. I'm still in the same place. Yeah, I never left. So I'm surprised that she's saying.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. There was a contributor before we left that got cut off.
Ziyanda, it was me. It was Bianca.
Great.
Just to recap on what I'd said, I just mentioned that generosity and just connecting with our clients. And the reason why I'm saying generosity is that I'm finding that I'm doing coaching with them on the phone, which is not being charged for, but is actually giving me insight into the sort of support that they will need going forward and potentially products that we can develop for other clients. And it just led me to think of other opportunities, for example, the exchange rates and the world economy and the fact that everybody's in this position. So if we get better at this, perhaps we can even just be an international resource and we can start tapping into global markets more effectively.
Wow. Wow. That I suppose when Bianca, that shows the quality of thinking that you then had after the brain fog.
Yes, after the brain fog and the generosity of Symphonia to just have these webinars for free and get us out of brain fog and get us thinking ahead, and also just the sense of community and knowing that other very, very skilled and very intelligent people are going through the same thing. And then also you guys just being brave enough not to be crappy at this and making mistakes and finding out, and that's where the lack of judgment is going to start coming in, is as everybody steps out of their comfort zone and starts practicing these webinars, and we're not all at the same technical level, and just the sense of humanity to support each other.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that sharing. And you know what, it confirms, so when we call it a brain fog or the brain took a break or the brain went offline, that's actually the state of being in the forest. Remember the forest we spoke about, that's a state of I'm in the forest now. I know I'm in the forest. All I'm trying to do in this session is for us to understand how to raise our level of consciousness to first listen to self, because it is self that needs to navigate with others. So I'm really loving it, because as you contributing, you're actually linking what it means to download patterns that are older patterns and start to realize I'm in the forest, I'm in a brain fog, I'm in the forest. But I need to know where to go, which is, again, I'm aware that I don't know where to go, which therefore means I need a community of people to help me think differently so I know where to go. To Michelle's point, because the quality of thinking is what's going to help us create the new world and actually help our economy to be on its feet again. But the system, the country, everybody is dependent on quality of thinking. For us to arrive at quality of thinking, we got to get out of the forest. But first, we have to know that we are in the forest. So that's really what I'm trying to do, is to raise the level of awareness and consciousness to us going inward before we can go outward. So unless there's another sharing that is coming up, I wanted to ask this question with this slide on. We are almost there. We're going to finish just now. Because letting go of judgment is important. Holding the space for listening is critical in the transformation journey, but also observing, understanding that where your energy follows attention, or rather energy follows attention, right? So you pay attention to something, your energy will follow that. And the question I have before I even explain what is on the screen right now is, what are some of the things that are affecting our quality of thinking, and what are we going to do about it? Reflecting on the screen before I even explain it, what is affecting our quality of thinking, and what must we consciously do about it? Anyone would like to answer?
I think if I reflect on what you put on the screen, we hearing COVID everywhere, social media, it's everywhere. So that's where the focus is for the world. So you have to, if you want to listen to yourself, you have to take time to say, okay, I'm not gonna be on social media the whole day. You have to take time to get yourself out of that, not focus on it like the world is doing, like everywhere you go is COVID. So you need to be intentional in shifting your focus away from the COVID bad news.
Okay.
Because you don't want to attract that into your life.
Okay. Thank you, Mafelo. Try to avoid COVID news. What else can we do, guys, in order for us to start getting out of the forest, brain fog, brain is on pause, to start to experience quality of thinking so we can create the new solutions for the new problems we are encountering?
I think we need to focus on the positives.
What would be
everything? In everything, even in the negatives, there's a positive.
Yes. And for example, what would be the positive in the?
I can give a classic example.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I can give you an example. I mean, just a plain and simple example on our side. In the medical field, even in the environment of this COVID-19 or this coronavirus, there are opportunities for us as a company, you know, to put our products across as solutions to what is happening. So positive thinking, not concentrating on the negative, on what is happening, but thinking of solutions, not even just for now, but going forward. What can be done to assist the country to deal with not only this situation, but others that they present themselves at a later stage? Start thinking forward and saying, what was lacking now? What is it that we can put in place that can help us in the future so that we can avoid situations like this where people run around like headless chickens, afraid, etc., etc. What can we do? What can we offer as solutions or as ways of helping people, removing the stress, the fear and everything, putting something in place that can make them feel that I am safe, I am covered. This is how we should start thinking, instead of sitting around in this forest and being scared of I don't know where I am, what's happening. What can I do? What can I add? And this is what our company is that we've come up with things and products that can actually help not only now, but even in the future, to try and change the environment, to make it acceptable to positive things and reject negative things.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Deborah, for that.
Ziyanda?
Who is online?
Ziyanda?
Yes, go ahead, we can hear.
Ziyanda?
I can hear you.
I so resonate with what Tebeko was saying, and I think it's when we talk about shifting, you know, and looking at the positives, it's always about reframing the stories we hold for ourselves, and choosing to reframe it in such a way that it leads us forward and out of the forest. It's and I think often what keeps me back is that I think I have to be doing something huge to change something, but actually the thing that will keep me moving forward, or at least ignite some forward movement, is to just ask myself, what is the next small step that I can take? What's the next small thing that I can do? And when I look at these figures on this, you know, the chart in front of us, you know, you could either look at the deaths or you could look at the recoveries. And so it's how we choose to frame it. And even if we do look at the, you know, start with that sinking negative thing to begin with, for me, it's catching myself thinking that, and then consciously reframing it for myself, and then moving from seeing to reflecting to an active response. And then for me, even if it's a small step, it's a step towards moving out of the forest. And that's, I mean, that's how cities were rebuilt after they were bombed in the Second World War. Any crisis or anything, when there's rubble in the streets, it's about how do we begin to rebuild, and it's usually one brick at a time.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's that one small step and the framing of a story, rephrasing and restoring. And as a storyteller, I'm always thinking, how can we restore and restoring the whole scenario? And yeah.
I love that. How can we restore and restore the scenario? That's brilliant. And also, I thank you for your contribution as well. It's critical. I guess that's why we're having this conversation as well, to say, what can I use? What tools can I use to catch myself? What tools can I use to raise my own consciousness when I'm not catching myself? So I can bring myself back to the clarity of thinking, or positive thinking, or quality of thinking. Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to share? What has been affecting your quality of thinking, and what must you do differently? Taking into consideration, Bianca, you can come through? Taking into consideration the screen that we're looking at.
Sorry, I didn't realize I put up my hand, but I can share something. What has been affecting my quality of thinking is the noise at home with everybody here, and my kids transitioning into online learning. My son is in matric, my daughter's in grade 1. So I've got the stress of matric, and then I've got the transition to becoming a grade 1 co-teacher. And I realized that I just needed space. And so that required me to communicate with my husband, collaborate with him, and just get some space so that I can start thinking. Yeah, so that was it for me.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Bianca. I just want to quickly read, guys, on the chats. Tammy said, agreed, we need to stay positive. We can't change the space we're in, but we can change how we deal with it. And Arlington says, the wow of this time is about what opportunities, where, shift thinking, all right? And then Tessa says, every journey starts with the first step. Agreed? Nomapelo says, she's stealing the restory, stealing that one. Let's restore the restory and restory. I like that one as well. And the other comment from ABRL is, for me, having a family member that's been diagnosed positive makes it hard, as she is part of that positive number. Would you like to share more on how you are dealing with that and how it's affecting your quality of thinking? ABRL? Not now, all right, that's fine, that's all right. So I agree with you guys. What I have done personally to shift my own thinking, because I realized I too needed to have quality of thinking so that I can actually solve for my clients and for myself. What I've done in these states is actually to zoom into the recoveries, because I recognize that a lot of people have been tested. Actually, these numbers have changed already. So I've got them in the notes there. So we have 5.350 positive cases. The recoveries are still the same, but the deaths have increased up to 103 as of today. So, and also the tests that they've done is 197 now versus 185 from yesterday. And the reason why I have been focusing on the 2073, I've been asking the question that maybe people like Atemuko would help us understand, is to say, if people are recovering, there must be a solution there. What is helping them recover? Are you by any chance aware, because that is my point of interest. I'm trying to look for how can we help people recover, because we've got 2,000 plus that are recovering.
I think somebody spoke about the media, and I think the media has played a big part in scaring people. I think if we go back to when this whole thing started, there was a statement that was made saying that this COVID-19 will negatively affect a select group of people. And I think if you look at the recovery, most of the recovery are the numbers of people that are your normal the age groups that are basically younger people, younger than 60 and above puts you in a risk area. People that don't have comorbidities, people that don't have underlying illnesses, people that are normally healthy, have dealt with flu in the past, and etc. There's no reason for you to be fearful, because this thing will then affect you in the same way that a flu would have affected you. You take meds once you contract, you are testing positive, you're going to take meds, the same type of meds that you would have taken for flu and etc. And it takes a bit of time. It's about 2 weeks, 3 weeks max. You're going to recover. So I think there's been a lot of fear that has been placed in people. I think there's a lot of other remedies that people have come and have put online, on chat rooms, on Facebook, and etc. that have worked for them. There's a Nigerian guy who put a remedy on that he used for his, I don't know if it's his mother or his grandmother or mother-in-law or something, but it was an older person who was obviously in a high risk bracket. I think they use something like lemon and ginger tea, which they mixed with the garlic and ginger paste, added a bit of med lemon in a half a cup, drank it for a couple of days, and she was fine. So there is people can get cured or can get healed. I'm not saying everybody will. Please don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that there doesn't have to be that unnatural fear that as soon as you test positive, you're going to die. It's not like that.
Yes.
And that's why you are seeing the recovery.
Yes.
And another thing that I must add, which a lot of the doctors are speaking about, I'm not saying anything against what our government has decided. I think it was brilliant because it actually helped the medical fraternity. But we also need to remember that contracting these things boosts your immunity. You now become immune to these things. And it's a process that human beings have to go through to be able to fight or combat viruses. Is that you contract, just like with a flu, you contract it, your body builds up immunity so that the next time you are in contact with it, you are immune.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Just food for thought.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually thank you so much for those insights, because the reason why I put these numbers next to observing, and with the emphasis that says your energy follows your attention. So depending on what you are consciously paying attention to, the energy, good and bad or good or bad, will follow that. Exactly. And so the reason why I put these figures here is to say you've got options. You can focus on how many tested, you can focus on the positives, you can focus on the deaths, but I have chosen to focus on the recoveries because there sits in positivity and potential solutions for us going forward. So again, it is our choice what we choose to focus on and for what reasons we choose to focus on those things. So thank you very much for sharing that, Tebogo. And the last one before this system cuts us out, the reason why we needed to download our patterns before the pandemic, it is because we needed to recognize that we are in a forest. And where are we in the forest and which direction do we want to take? That's raising your consciousness. And going forward out of the forest, you're going to go in and out of the forest depending on your context. It is very important for you to suspend judgment, because once you suspend judgment, you are able to deep listening to yourself, to do deep active listening for yourself and for others, thereby creating a safe space for others to converse or share ideas with you, and that helps you to keep an open mind. The reason we're doing that is because we need to be aware of where our attention goes, because our energy will follow that, and energy will follow our attention, right? And so when you raise your consciousness to where your attention goes, you're starting to be present. All I'm trying to do in this conversation is to awaken ourselves. Can we just be awake and be present? Being present means you even need to listen to the languaging of the media personnel. Because the reason why we are fearful, it is because of the languaging that they use. They share the very same numbers I've just shared now, but because the intention or their attention is on the negative, that induces fear. But we still have a choice of how we deal with that. So we need to be present. To be present, one, we need to pay attention to what? To understand that what we pay attention to, and energy will follow that. Number two, we need to transform the three enemies. The three enemies are judgment, they are fear, and they are cynicism. in order for to transform and help ourselves with quality of thinking, we've got to let go of these three enemies, which is judgment, fear, and cynicism. Because if we carry those three into the current state and going forward, we will never be able to create a safe space for creation, for co-creating the new world, right? When we are in the forest, we continuously go at the edges, to the edges of ourselves. So we'll always go into the discomfort. I said it earlier on when someone was contributing to say, sometimes she was saying you have to sit with the thoughts, which is very true. And when we think, following a thinking is a feeling, you also have to sit with the feeling. The feeling is trying to show you something about you that you need to learn. Sit at the edges of your own self and raise your own awareness and consciousness about what you are going through so you can actually start to learn the lessons. And you must always start with a crack. That's where I said, where is the crossroad? What is affecting our own quality of thinking? Because once our quality of thinking is affected, who's going to create the new world if not us? So it's very important for us to go through all of these things so that we can be present in the state we find ourselves in. Any comments on that one? On what could stand in the way or what you would like to add? Any comments? Any additions? Anything I must repeat? Pleasure, Bianca. So this is really just the sequencing of some of the tools that we can use as we transition from the before pandemic state of being, state of thinking, into the present, to the future. I just want to re-emphasize this. It's all in our hands, literally, but we are dependent on the quality of thinking. Out of the brain fog comes creativity. We need to get out of the negative thinking. Thank you so much for everything, guys. Thank you for being part of the conversation. And thank you. Hi. Who is speaking now?
It's me, Ziyanda, Julie speaking.
Julie, okay. Hi, Julie.
Julie, yeah. And as you were speaking, I was just so aware, and I just wanted to share this because it's an analogy so strong for me. There have been some amazing little videos doing the rounds on WhatsApp of before the pandemic, what cities look like, and then after the pandemic. And really what strikes me is when I see these polluted cities, how thick the pollution is. You know, a couple of us have been talking about brain fog, but I look at the pollution and I think to myself, now that everything's quietened down and settled, the pollution is lifting. So in a sense, I think that's what I feel called to, is how do I begin to shift the pollution? What do I let go of and what do I choose to take forward with me? And so the analogy of pollution is quite strong. And how do we clear the space going forward? How do I clear the space going forward? And then how do I keep myself from going back to polluting myself or my inner world in a way that doesn't serve me? And in so clearing the pollution, how do I then step out to serve my community and my clients again? Yeah, so it's the analogy of the pollution settling and clearing the air. That sits strongly with me. And so this talk that you've presented this morning has just been a lovely way to speak into that. So I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Julie. I actually 100% agree with you. Up until now, I think humans didn't think that they were part of nature. Actually, we are part of nature and we have to look after nature. And the state we're in has taught us that very well. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, guys. And hopefully one of you will host us going forward and help us craft or navigate ourselves towards the new world as well. Thank you so much. Bye.